Solara had never imagined her life would end up like this. She was once a proud member of a peaceful alien race, living on a beautiful planet with green skies and sparkling lakes. But now, everything she had known was gone. The war had destroyed her home, leaving nothing behind but ruins and ashes. Her people were scattered, lost, or killed. There was no place for her to return to, no hope left for her to hold on to. For weeks, Solara had been traveling through space, looking for somewhere safe. She had no plan, no destination. She was just running from the memories of her destroyed world, running from the fear of being hunted down by the same enemies that had taken everything from her. She had heard stories about humans, how they were weak, simple, and insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But right now, she didn't care about any of that. She was tired, hungry, and scared. She had landed on a small human colony. The place was quiet and peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos she had left behind. She had no money, no resources, and no real way to survive on her own. The humans here didn't know her, didn't know what she had been through. She wasn't sure if they would even help her, but it was her only chance. Solara wasn't used to asking for help. Her people were proud, strong, and independent. They never begged, never showed weakness. But this time, things were different. She was a stranger in a strange land, and the weight of her past was too heavy to carry alone. The war had taken everything: her family, her friends, her future. She had nothing left to lose. She wandered through the colony, trying to find someone who might be willing to take her in, but no one seemed to notice her. The humans went about their daily lives, busy with their work and their families. No one gave her a second glance, and she couldn't blame them. She was nothing more than a stranger, an outsider. As the sun began to set, Solara found herself standing in front of a small, run-down house at the edge of the colony. It looked simple, almost forgotten, but it was the only place that seemed quiet enough for her to think. She had nowhere else to go. She stepped forward, knocking softly on the door. Her heart was racing, and she wasn't sure what to expect. Would they open the door? Would they send her away? Would they even care? To her surprise, the door creaked open, and a man appeared. He was human, of course, with rough hands and a tired face. His clothes were simple, just a shirt and pants, but he had an air of kindness about him. His eyes met hers, and for a moment neither of them spoke. There was a silence between them, a strange understanding. "What do you want?" the man asked, his voice low but not unkind. Solara hesitated. She had never been good at asking for help, but the desperation in her voice was clear. "I need shelter," she said softly. "Just for a while. I can work. I can help." The man looked at her for a long time, studying her face, as if trying to figure out who she was and what she wanted. For a moment, Solara thought he might close the door in her face, but instead, he stepped aside. "You can stay for a while," he said. "Come in. We'll figure things out." Solara didn't know what to say. She had expected to be turned away, expected more rejection. But here was this human, offering her shelter without asking any questions, without hesitation. She stepped inside the small house, unsure of what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Solara stepped inside the small house, her feet making soft sounds on the wooden floor. It was nothing like the grand palaces of her home, but there was something calming about it. The room was simple: bare walls, a few pieces of old furniture, and a small fire crackling in the corner. A faint smell of cooking lingered in the air, mixed with the scent of the earth outside. She had never imagined that a human home could feel so welcoming. The man, who had introduced himself as Ryder, motioned to a chair by the fire. "Sit down. You must be tired," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Solara hesitated at first, unsure of whether to trust him. She had learned to be cautious, especially when dealing with strangers. But there was something in his eyes, a kindness that made her want to believe him. She took a seat, trying to relax. Ryder moved around the room, his movements slow and deliberate. He didn't seem rushed or impatient, just steady and calm. He had already started a pot of stew on the fire, and the smell of it was starting to fill the room. Solara's stomach growled softly. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until now. "So," Ryder said, sitting down across from her with a bowl of soup. "What's your name? Where are you from?" Solara's first instinct was to keep her past hidden. She had learned the hard way that revealing too much could be dangerous. But there was something about Ryder that made her want to tell him the truth. Perhaps it was the warmth in his voice, or the way he looked at her, not with fear or suspicion, but with curiosity and concern. "My name is Solara," she said, her voice low. "I'm from a distant place, a place far away from here. I've lost everything, my home, my people. I'm just trying to survive." Ryder nodded, his face softening with understanding. "I can't imagine what you've been through," he said quietly. "But you're safe here. You don't need to worry." Solara's heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, but they carried so much weight. She had never felt this kind of safety before, not from anyone, let alone a human. Ryder didn't look at her like she was weak or broken, like others had. He didn't even look at her with pity. He simply accepted her, just as she was. "Why are you helping me?" Solara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Ryder paused for a moment, then shrugged. "Sometimes people just help because it's the right thing to do," he said. "I don't need a reason to be kind. It's just who I am." Solara felt a knot in her chest loosen, though she wasn't sure why. She had expected to be treated like an outsider, something less than human. But here she was, sitting in a human's home, being treated with respect and kindness. She had been so wrong about humans. She had always thought of them as weak, inferior beings, but Ryder was proving her wrong in every way. As the evening wore on, they talked more. Ryder didn't ask too many questions, respecting her need for privacy. Instead, they shared small stories about their lives, simple things, like how he used to work on a farm and how she had been part of a peaceful community back home. It felt strange, this slow, gentle exchange. For the first time in a long while, Solara felt like she wasn't alone. Like she wasn't just a refugee or a survivor, but a person. After a while, the fire flickered low, and Solara felt her eyelids growing heavy. Ryder noticed. "You can rest now," he said, standing up. "I'll get you a blanket." She nodded, grateful. As he left to fetch the blanket, Solara stared into the dying fire. Her mind was racing, filled with confusion and wonder. She had come here for shelter, expecting nothing more than a roof over her head. But in a matter of hours, this human had offered her something far more valuable: kindness, warmth, and, maybe for the first time in her life, a feeling of belonging. Ryder returned with a thick woolen blanket and gently draped it over her shoulders. "Sleep well," he said softly. Solara didn't say anything in return. She was too tired to speak. As she lay back, closing her eyes, she realized something. She had come to this strange planet, broken and lost. But now, in this quiet, humble home, she had found something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. The days that followed were a strange mix of peace and uncertainty. Solara had never imagined that she would find herself in a human's home, especially not after everything that had happened to her. But here she was, staying with Ryder, feeling safer than she had in weeks. She had never felt this way before, not in her own world, not with her own people. Humans, who she had always thought were weak and small, had shown her something completely different. Ryder didn't treat her like a stranger. He treated her like a person. No, like a friend. It was something she wasn't used to. Back home, her people valued strength, power, and survival above all. There was no room for kindness or softness. But here, in Ryder's home, everything was different. He didn't ask her to prove herself or fight for her place. He simply accepted her. Each day, Ryder showed her something new. They worked together in his small garden, planting crops and fixing the simple machines that powered his home. At first, Solara was unsure of what to do. She had never worked with human tools or done tasks like these before. But Ryder patiently showed her the ropes, explaining everything slowly. He never got frustrated with her mistakes. Every time she fumbled, he just smiled and said, "It's okay, we learn by doing." And that's exactly what Solara did. She learned. She learned how to fix things, how to plant, and even how to cook a few simple meals. Ryder's cooking wasn't fancy, but it was warm and filling. They ate together in the evenings, talking about their lives, their pasts, their hopes. Solara began to realize that humans had more depth than she had ever imagined. They were not just weak creatures, but complex, caring beings who could offer more than just survival. One afternoon, as they sat together after a long day of work, Ryder asked her something that caught her off guard. "Do you miss your home?" he asked, his voice soft but curious. Solara froze, unsure how to answer. The question stirred up old memories. Memories of a place that was no more. She missed her family, her friends, the land where she had grown up, but she couldn't go back. There was nothing left to return to. I miss the way things used to be," she said slowly, her voice filled with sadness. "But it's gone now. Everything is gone." Ryder nodded, his expression understanding. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "But you're not alone now. You have a place here. You have me." Those words hit Solara harder than she expected. She didn't know how to respond. She had always thought of herself as strong, someone who didn't need help, someone who didn't need others. But now, here she was, in a strange human home, relying on Ryder's kindness. The thought made her feel vulnerable. As the days passed, she found herself opening up more. She began to trust Ryder in ways she hadn't trusted anyone in a long time. She told him more about her past, about her home, her people, the war that had destroyed everything. She even shared the fear she carried, the fear of being hunted, the fear that she would never truly be safe. Ryder listened without judgment. He didn't interrupt or try to fix her problems. He simply listened, offering her a safe space to talk. It was something she had never experienced before. It made her realize just how much she had been missing in her life. For the first time, she felt seen, heard, and understood. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Solara turned to Ryder with a question of her own. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked. "You don't even know me. I'm not like you. I'm not human." Ryder smiled, his eyes kind and steady. "It doesn't matter what you are," he said. "You're here now, and that's what matters. I believe everyone deserves a chance, no matter where they come from or who they are." His words left Solara speechless. She had never known such unconditional kindness. It was something she wasn't used to, something she hadn't believed in for a long time. But now, in Ryder's home, she saw the truth in his words. Maybe kindness wasn't just a weakness. Maybe it was a strength. As the night wore on, and the fire crackled softly in the background, Solara realized something she hadn't expected. She had come to this human colony seeking shelter. But now, she had found something far more valuable. She had found a new way of seeing the world, a world where kindness and compassion weren't signs of weakness, but of strength. And for the first time in a long time, Solara felt like she had found a place where she truly belonged. As the weeks passed, Solara settled into a new rhythm with Ryder. The simple, quiet life she had found with him was unlike anything she had ever known. She had always been on the run, always afraid, always hiding. But now, in this small human home, she felt something different, something she had almost forgotten existed. Peace. Each day brought a new lesson. Ryder had taught her how to plant crops, how to care for the animals that wandered nearby, and how to repair the small machines that powered his home. She had never imagined that such simple tasks could feel so fulfilling. In her old life, she had been part of a great society, full of power and responsibility. But here, in this small corner of the universe, she found comfort in the everyday things. Ryder was patient with her, always taking the time to explain things carefully, never rushing her. When she made mistakes, he would laugh softly and say, "It's okay. We all make mistakes." His calm nature was a stark contrast to the constant tension and fear that had defined her life before. Solara found herself looking forward to their quiet evenings together, working side by side, talking, and sometimes just sitting in silence, enjoying each other's company. One afternoon, after they had finished working in the garden, Solara sat on the porch, watching the sun begin to set. The colors in the sky were unlike anything she had ever seen on her home planet. Vibrant oranges and pinks that filled the horizon. It was beautiful, but also a reminder of how much she had lost. She had never realized how much she missed the simple things, the beauty of nature, the calmness of a quiet evening. Ryder came out and joined her, holding 2 mugs of warm tea. He handed one to Solara and sat down beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them was peaceful, the only sound the gentle rustling of the trees in the breeze. "You know," Ryder said after a while, "I never imagined I'd end up here like this, alone. But then you showed up, and everything changed." Solara glanced at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft. Ryder smiled, his eyes thoughtful. "I guess I've been running too, running from my past, from things I couldn't fix. But you've shown me that there's more to life than just surviving. There's something bigger than that. There's kindness, there's connection. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not alone." Solara felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that, how much she needed to know that she wasn't the only one running from the past. Ryder's words made her realize that they were both searching for something that neither of them had ever expected to find each other. "I don't know what's going to happen next," Ryder continued, his voice steady. "But I do know this. You don't have to face it alone. Not anymore." Solara's heart tightened. It was the first time someone had offered her true companionship since the war had destroyed everything she knew. For so long, she had carried the weight of her past alone, never trusting anyone. But Ryder was different. He wasn't just offering shelter. He was offering a place in his life, in his heart. "I don't want to go back to that life," Solara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to live in fear anymore." Ryder nodded, his gaze softening. "You don't have to. You can stay here with me. We'll figure things out together." The words settled in Solara's heart like a warm, comforting weight. She had never imagined she would be in this place, offered safety, friendship, and even love by a human. But here she was, in a world she hadn't expected to find, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could let go of her fear. The next morning, as they worked together in the garden, something shifted between them. There was no longer any awkwardness, no more distance. They were a team, working side by side as equals. The bond between them had grown stronger, and Solara realized that she wasn't just staying with Ryder for shelter. She was staying because, for the first time in years, she had found a place where she truly belonged. And it wasn't just the safety that mattered anymore. It was the warmth, the understanding, and the connection that Ryder had given her. So, return. Solara found herself wanting to give him something too, a sense of peace, a sense of home. She may have come to this planet looking for shelter, but now, She was beginning to understand what it meant to have something more. A place to heal, a place to trust, and a place to love. The days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Solara felt something changing inside her. It was as if the weight of her past, the fear and the sorrow, was slowly lifting. Ryder had given her more than just shelter. He had given her hope, a chance to rebuild, and perhaps even a chance to feel at home again. The garden was thriving. The small house was warm and inviting. Every evening, the two of them would sit by the fire, sharing stories and simple laughter. Solara had never known such peace. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to relax, to enjoy the small moments that Ryder had helped her rediscover. But despite the calm, Solara's mind couldn't stop thinking. There were still many questions she had, things she didn't understand. Why had Ryder helped her? Why had he taken her in without hesitation? She had been a stranger to him, an outsider, and yet he had offered her everything: his home, his kindness, his trust. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Solara couldn't keep the question inside any longer. "Ryder," she said quietly, "why did you help me? You didn't have to. You didn't know me." Ryder turned to her, his face serious but kind. He was silent for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "I guess I just saw someone who needed help," he said slowly. "I've been through a lot myself, and I know what it's like to feel lost. I couldn't just turn you away, not when you looked like you needed something more than just survival." Solara looked at him, trying to understand. She had known pain, loss, and fear for so long. She had been afraid to trust anyone, convinced that no one would ever offer her the kindness Ryder had. "You didn't ask for anything in return," Solara said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "You didn't even question me. Why?" Ryder smiled, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. "Because I believe that when you offer kindness, you don't need to ask for anything back. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. I don't expect anything from you." "Solara, you've already given me something I didn't know I needed, a reason to believe in something again. That's enough for me." Solara felt a warmth spread through her chest. His words hit her harder than she had expected. She had been so focused on survival, so focused on what she had lost, that she had never stopped to think about what it meant to give, to be a part of something greater than herself. Ryder wasn't just offering her shelter. He was offering her a chance to give back, to rebuild, and to find peace again. The next morning, as they worked together in the garden, something shifted between them. It wasn't just the quiet companionship they had shared for weeks. It was something deeper, something unspoken. As Solara dug into the earth, her hands steady and sure, she realized that she wasn't just staying with Ryder for survival anymore. She was staying because she wanted to be there, because she wanted to build something together. Later that evening, as the fire crackled softly in the corner of the room, Solara looked at Ryder with a new sense of understanding. She knew now that the bond they shared was more than just a human helping an alien. It was a true partnership, built on trust, kindness, and a shared desire to heal. "I want to stay here," Solara said quietly, her voice filled with certainty. "I want to help you to build something here, together." Ryder looked at her, his face lighting up with a smile. "I'm glad to hear that. You don't have to say it. But I think I've known that for a while." Solara smiled back, a soft, genuine smile. It felt like the first time in years that she had truly smiled. She had found something in this quiet human, something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Not just safety, but connection. She didn't need to keep running anymore. She had found a place where she could stop, where she could rebuild and heal. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had found a home. As the stars filled the sky above them, Solara knew that the journey she had started was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, there would be memories to face, and there would be moments of doubt. But with Ryder by her side, she no longer felt like she was facing the world alone. Together, they would face whatever came next. It had been a few months since Solara had found peace in Ryder's home. Each day felt a little easier, a little more comfortable. The house had become a home, and the quiet life they shared was beginning to feel like something that could last. She had never imagined that something so simple, so quiet, could bring her so much joy. But peace, as Solara was learning, was fragile. One morning, as they were finishing their breakfast, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered. Ryder stood up abruptly, his face tense. He was staring out the window, his eyes narrowed, watching something in the distance. Solara noticed the change in his posture, the way his muscles tensed, and she immediately felt the shift in the air. "Ryder?" she asked softly, standing up to join him. "What's wrong?" Ryder didn't answer at first. Instead, he moved to the door, grabbing his jacket. He was already putting it on when he turned to her, his expression serious. "There's something coming. I'm not sure what yet, but we need to prepare." Solara's heart began to race. She had never seen Ryder like this, always calm, always steady. But now, there was something in his voice that made her nervous. She quickly followed him outside, her mind running through possibilities. Was it another attack? A wild animal? She didn't know what to expect, but the fear in Ryder's eyes told her that whatever it was serious. Ryder walked briskly toward the small shed at the edge of the property where he kept tools and supplies. He pulled open the door and began gathering things: ropes, a few weapons, and a couple of thick blankets. Solara watched, her anxiety growing with each passing moment. "What's happening?" she asked again, her voice more urgent this time. Ryder turned to her, his face still tight with worry. "There's a group of people, humans, coming this way. I don't know what they want, but I have a bad feeling about it." Solara's mind raced. She had heard stories of rogue humans, groups who didn't care about anyone except themselves, who took whatever they wanted by force. She had seen what they could do to people who weren't strong enough to defend themselves. "Are they dangerous?" she asked, already moving to help him gather supplies. Ryder nodded. "I think so. They don't just wander around in these parts, unless they're looking for trouble." Solara's thoughts raced. They had both lived in fear before. Her, of the war that had destroyed everything she knew, and Ryder, of his own past and the people who had wronged him. She hadn't expected this kind of danger to find them, not here, in this quiet place. But now, as the reality of the situation sank in, she realized that no matter how far she ran, danger would always be lurking. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping in. Ryder paused for a moment, then looked at her with resolve. "We stay calm. We protect ourselves and each other. We're stronger together, Solara. You've learned how to survive here. Now, it's time to put those skills to the test." Solara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew that she wasn't going to let fear control her, not anymore. She had learned to stand on her own 2 feet again, thanks to Ryder. Now, she would help him, no matter what. The two of them worked quickly, securing the house, covering the windows, and gathering everything they might need. Ryder's calmness seemed to ground her, making her feel like she could handle whatever was coming. She had come to trust him completely, and now she realized that this bond they shared was more important than ever. They were a team, and nothing was going to tear them apart. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the land, Ryder and Solara stood side by side, waiting. The quiet, peaceful life they had built together was about to face its first, real test. And though Solara was scared, she was also ready. She had learned to trust herself, to trust Ryder, and now, together, they would face whatever came their way. In the distance, they saw the figures approaching. The time to face their fears was here. The air grew tense as the figures in the distance moved closer. Ryder and Solara stood side by side, their eyes fixed on the approaching group. The sun was nearly gone, casting a dim light across the land. It felt like everything around them had gone quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Ryder kept his eyes on the group, trying to count how many there were. He could tell they weren't ordinary travelers. They were rough-looking, dressed in worn-out clothes, their faces hardened with the marks of a life spent on the move. They were armed, carrying knives, and some had crude weapons like makeshift clubs. Ryder's heart began to race, but he stayed calm. He had been in situations like this before. Solara stood beside him, her fists clenched, her body tense. She had no experience with people like this, but she had learned how to fight, how to protect herself. She wasn't going to back down now, not after everything Ryder had done for her. "What do we do?" Solara asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We stay calm and keep our distance," Ryder replied, his voice low and careful. "If they're looking for trouble, we'll handle it, but we don't start anything unless we have to." Solara nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of what could happen. She had seen enough of the world to know that some people would do anything to get what they wanted, but this wasn't her old life. She had found something different with Ryder, something worth fighting for. As the strangers drew closer, Ryder took a step forward, his body language open but cautious. He didn't want to show any weakness, but he also didn't want to provoke them. Solara stayed behind him, watching the strangers carefully. The group finally reached the edge of the property, stopping just out of range of Ryder and Solara. The leader of the group, a tall man with a scruffy beard, stepped forward. He looked Ryder up and down, his eyes cold and calculating. "Hey there," the man said, his voice rough. "We're just passing through, but we could use some supplies. Looks like you've got a good setup here. Thought we might trade for a bit." Ryder studied the man for a moment, trying to read him. He didn't trust these people, but he didn't want to start a fight either. He had to keep his cool. "We don't have much to trade," Ryder said, his voice firm. "We're just getting by like everyone else. If you need help, we can share what we can. But there's not much here for you." The man's eyes narrowed, clearly not liking Ryder's answer. He stepped a little closer, his hand resting on the handle of a knife at his belt. "You sure about that?" the leader asked, his tone darker now. "I think you've got more than enough to share. It would be a shame if something happened to this little place of yours." Ryder's jaw tightened. The threat was clear, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he stood tall, his posture strong. He could feel Solara's presence behind him, the calm support of someone who understood what was at stake. He was no longer just protecting himself. He was protecting her too. I said, "We don't have anything to give," Ryder repeated, his voice colder now. "You'd better move on." For a long moment, there was silence. The leader of the group stared at Ryder, then looked at Solara, who stood silently but defiantly beside him. Finally, the man gave a small, grudging laugh. "You've got guts. I'll give you that," the leader said. "All right, we'll leave you be for now, but don't think we won't be back." With that, the group turned and started walking away, their footsteps heavy on the ground. Solara exhaled deeply, her body relaxing as the tension lifted. Ryder didn't let his guard down yet. He watched the group leave, but his eyes remained alert. When they were out of sight, Ryder turned to Solara, a small, reassuring smile on his face. "We did it," he said simply. Solara smiled back, though her heart was still racing. "You handled that well," she said. Ryder shrugged, but his eyes were full of pride. "We both did. We didn't back down. That's what matters." As the night fell and the stars began to fill the sky, Solara realized something important. She had feared that she would always be running from danger, always looking over her shoulder. But now, with Ryder by her side, she understood that they could face anything together. They had proven that they were strong, not just as individuals, but as a team. For the first time in a long time, Solara felt truly safe. not because the world around them was perfect, but because she knew that with Ryder, she could face whatever came next. And she wasn't alone anymore.